Hey, everybody, welcome to Pink Shade. It's Thursday, and that means we're going to talk about pop and Bravo. That's pop culture and Bravo. And I have Melissa here, your Bish therapist. She's here. How you doing?
Hi, Mary Payne. I'm great. How are you? Thanks so
It's
much for having me back.
it's back by popular demand. Everybody loved when you were on last time.
Oh, they did. Yay. That makes my heart so
Yeah,
happy.
everybody loved it so much. I was like, all right, come on
Okay.
back. We had already planned it anyway. Yeah.
I know. I love you. I love the pod, and we also have talked about I love, some of the 90-day stuff. So our worlds really just collide in many ways.
Yeah. Now tell me 90 Day. What are you watching there? What's going on with you there?
So I watched the Last Resort one. There's too
Uh-huh.
many names. I can't keep them all straight.
Right.
So I watched The Last Resort. I watch, like, the ones with, like I like Libya and Andre, of course, Angela and Michael, because that's just one of the most chaotic relationships in the history of television that I can
They're
recall.
they're back and forth in court currently. Yeah.
Oh, they are. I see it.
Yeah.
I can't even keep up because it's
Right.
new
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, yeah, so I'm a huge fan of all that universe.
Well, the new 90 Day Happily Ever After is starting this Sunday. And
Oh.
because we just ended 90 Day OG, we just ended that. So 90 Day HEA is starting on Sunday, and I have already seen the screener for it. And if you like Libby and Andre, it's gonna be for you. It's gonna be for you.
'Cau I heard well, I thought I saw in a preview that they're moving to Moldova, which
I know.
is
Isn't that wild?
it is wild, but honestly, I feel like I've always saw that coming. Her family, they were like, "Don't move, don't move, don't move, don't move," and then I'm
Mhm.
like, "I don't know, I just" Libby is so into his Moldovan culture, which I think is really great, but I just yeah, imagine with little kids, it's a complete cultural difference and all of that, but listen, if they're happy, then kudos.
It seems to be that they're going to do it for a while, and, her whole point is, like, "My kids don't even know their other grandparents at all," and that's
Right.
really not fair, and he's like, "And we don't get along with her family at all, except for the dad, really, and one sister, so what's and the
Mhm.
way they could have a better cost of living, blah, blah, blah." So,
Sure.
the HEA is gonna be good. It's interesting the way they're doing it because and jury's out if I like it or not. They have all these couples, so, like, a lot of them are in Florida, so they're all together at a dinner party instead of having separate stories, and
Oh,
just really
that's
for
interesting.
for me, for note taking, I like to have the couple separate because I could be like, "Here are the notes for this couple," but when they're
Sure.
all together in a room, it makes it way harder. It's, like, gonna be like a taking reunion notes. It's hard.
No, literally, that's, like,
Mhm.
what we do for housewives, and it really does make it so much harder when you're because 'cause you're trying to, like, take notes and contextualize a
Yeah,
complete it's like each individual couple, but in the complete setting, and then that changes dynamics. I know, it's like the other
yeah.
week for the Valley, I swear, I think I had 40 slides, and I was like, "This is too many. This is too much." So I could understand I am a little hesitant about that. What does HEA stand for? What is the HE
Happily ever after, question
Oh.
mark, and
Oh,
there's a question mark.
question.
HEA question mark. Um, so we have Libby and Andre, we have Lauren and Alexi, and we
Oh,
have Yara and Jovi, and they're those 3 couples all get together for dinner because they all
interesting.
live in that area, and
In
then
that
we
same
have
area, yeah.
Darcy and Georgie who are in
I can by the way, I cannot believe
yeah,
Darcy and Georgie are back together. I
they're married.
cannot well,
They're
right.
married. Yeah.
It just, like, it blows my mind, and I'm fascinated by Darcy and Stacey. Like, those 2, I will watch anything that they are in. They are fascinating characters.
We do need another spinoff. It was great to see Stacey alone on, The Last Resort, with her and
Yes.
Florian to not have. I mean, Darcy did come to visit, but it was great to see her by herself because 'cause we've never seen her by herself. So it was
And I
nice.
think that's a big part of the problem. The 2 of them, they have too
Yeah,
much there's too much enmeshment, codependency, you
totally.
know? Yeah.
Um, well, since we're on the subject of Darcy and Stacey, what is your thought on What is that called in your therapist opinion when somebody changes themselves so much that they are unrecognizable?
Oh, like physically?
Yes, physically. Mhm.
Um, okay, so Darcy and Stacy, I believe there's this, and I have to be very mindful of how I talk about this. When I was in grad school, I took a course where we learned about some, psychological concepts and phenomenon. And there's this one, it's called folie à deux, which is French for shared madness.
Mhm.
And it is a concept that I was always fascinated by because it's so hard to have issues like having issues with yourself is one thing, but then when you have this shared sort of delusional piece with another person,
Yeah.
it's really, really fascinating. And so for me, I think Darcy and Stacy have some of the shared, well, I'm not going to call it madness. That's kind of a pejorative term, but they both seem to be so afraid to be individuals, like, they're glued and connected to the fact that they have to do everything the same. They have to look the same, they have to wear the same jewelry, they have to have the same boobs and hair and all this stuff,
Mhm.
and I think it comes from a place of lack of self-esteem because when they were growing up, from everything I've watched, they felt they were picked on, they were bullied, they felt very, unattractive, and I think too, because they are biracial, I think
Mhm.
that they were, had some issues being teased for that. And so it's to me very complex because I think while part of it is them trying to distance themselves from being biracial almost, and I don't know that
Mm.
they do it on purpose
Mhm.
because they try so hard to look just like a Barbie doll.
Yeah.
But I do think it also people have these issues where there's a gap between what they really look like and what they see. So I believe that they both kind of have distorted perceptions of
Yeah.
self and others.
Mhm.
And when you have a distorted perception of yourself and then you're getting plastic surgery, what happens is you end up looking like a doll because you have such an unhealthy view of yourself and self-esteem. So that's a very long way to answer that question,
No,
but that's
yeah.
kind of what I see for both of them.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me, and we saw it, also I don't know if you watched the tell-alls of this last season of 90 Day OG that finished last week. We have a woman on there, a Minnie, who l l she came on the screen, and people were like, "Who is that?" And this is
Mhm.
just she's on the current season. She'd been on the whole
Oh.
current season, and at the tell-all, she said it had been 6 weeks, and she had literally gotten a nose job, a temporal lift, a BBL, a this, that she'd gotten all this stuff, and her face and like, a eyelid she looked so wild, and then she had tons of makeup on, and could it be because she was only 6 weeks post-surgery? But
Yeah,
she
nice.
looked so different that it was, like, the first thing that was asked, like, "What's
Yeah.
going on here?" You know?
You
And
know,
and she said she felt bullied by the internet to do it. I was like, "You're
well,
so beautiful before, like, we couldn't even stop looking at her, she was so beautiful," you know? To us, she was,
well,
yeah.
right. And I think, like, what you see and what she sees are 2 different things, number 1, but number 2, I have a very little amount of what these people have, right? Like, I'm not famous, but I get a lot of feedback, and people are
Yeah.
mean, right? Yeah, people on the
Yes.
internet are mean. They're nasty, they're rude, like, the internet is gonna internet. Trolls are gonna troll. But if you base your entire self-worth on it, yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna have real problems because it's like you're gonna go up and down like the stock market,
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
base our self-perception based on other people. And so that's called an external locus of control, which is when we look at like other people and other things as the reason for like why things happen to us, as opposed to an internal locus of control, which is like, I control me, I'm in charge of me, right? There's like different ways to look at that. And in my opinion, I'd love to know what you think about this. The 90-day universe and all the spinoffs, there is just a lot of that insecurity because I think there are people who are essentially regular folks and get
Yeah.
thrust into the light like almost like a housewife, but then they're not. So I think that psychologically, fame does a lot to people. And if you don't have a really strong root system of like morals and values, you're going to be floating with the wind. And I think that's what
Mhm.
happens to a lot of these 90-day folks. They see themselves on TV. And by the way, who looks good on TV, like untouched up? When I look at myself in a podcast, I'm like, oh, dear God.
Right, and so imagine
So
if you're on, like,
right.
TV and you couldn't even, like, control your own, like, filter or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly, I get
Yeah.
it. I think it's tough for women, but I just wish some of these women would feel more self-confident and assured and not let the audience, make them do things that maybe aren't good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting because we have Shekinah on that show, and she's the same. She's more like, proud of it, and she's an esthetician by trade, so she's more like, "Oh, yeah, like, I got my lips filled and people made fun of them, but I like it," or, "I
Right.
wanted to look like this, so I did it, and I like it, and I felt confident." So, that's sort of the one thing where with, like, Darcy and Stacey, we love them so much as, like, fun characters like that. They'd be fun to go have a drink with. They'd be good girlfriends to have your back,
Mhm.
all of it. And then you see sort of this every time you see them, they've done something else, and they're putting it on their Instagram or whatever, and they're going back and forth to Turkey and getting, like, the fox eye and and you're like, "Wow, you can't do anything else." Like, there's no more space. There's no procedure you haven't done. Like, let it settle and let's
Right.
see what happens, you know?
Well, I think to me, Darcy and Stacey also, they're just people who are cripplingly, chronically looking for things to make them feel valuable. Like Darcy and
Mm.
Stacey will wear a stack of jewelry that costs more than my home.
Yeah.
And to me, when people are doing that paired with, plastic surgery, like extreme to the extreme,
Mhm.
um, and you deal with these unethical practitioners who will do anything to anybody, right? If
Yeah.
there are some doctors that I'm sure they would go to that they'd be like, ethically, we cannot do this.
You would hope,
Um,
yeah.
right, but I just think that they unfortunately are looking for things to fill that void, and nothing's gonna fill it other than self-love. Like, Darcy especially is so guilty of being like, "You know what? I am fabulous," and it's like, "But you don't believe that, because if you did believe it, right, there'd be
Yeah.
less plastic surgery, there'd be less caring about looking snatched." Like, I feel like they should make a Darcy doll that you pull the string and it says, "You look snatched," because that's like
Snatched,
her saying.
doing it
Right,
big.
exactly,
Yeah, snatched,
exactly.
yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm. It's
So
like, you can't even, like, talk about them without all of their catchphrases, right? It's so funny, like, "I'm
yeah.
snatched, power couple." You're like, "What? Powerful.
Right.
Okay." Yeah,
No,
they
it's so
talk in,
funny.
platitudes, right? They talk in, like, home goods
Totally.
phrases. Yeah, yeah.
And that's why they aren't, getting better. Because you can't live in platitudes, right? You
Right.
can't li I'm serious though, they, like they'll do these turn of phrase, and then it's like, "But this is why you're unhappy, because you're just being facetious about things that really matter, and, you're focusing on all the wrong things, the jewels and the clothes and the shoes and the hair and all that." And it's like, nothing's gonna fill that void but you just loving yourself, and that's the only thing they're not trying to do. They're trying to do everything else, you know?
Did you see the episode? It was mini seasons, and I don't know if it was I think it was from the Darcy and Stacey show, not from them being on other shows. I think it was their own show, and
Mhm.
Darcy went to a therapist, and we only saw our girl one time. It was the therapist she went to, and it was the most we have ever learned about their upbringing, really, where she
Yeah.
said that their dad, who they're so close to, Papa Silva, he, he traveled so much. He was some sort of government contractor or something.
Mhm.
We don't know if he was like CIA and just like taking people out. Like, we don't know what he did, but he was
Right.
gone a lot. And then we also found out he had after their mom, he had several other wives, all from other countries, sort of like what they're
Mhm.
doing. But
Mhm.
it was very interesting. There's like all I wanted like was for my dad to just be home with me. So a lot of, and then they continue to like live with their dad when they're older and not with the mom. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just there's so much there with, like, them not having a father figure around in their childhood,
Yeah.
I think has a lot to do with it.
I fully agree, and I actually do remember that scene because 'cause I've watched anything that Darcy and Stacey have been in,
Yeah.
and I think that, unfortunately, the only people who are supposed to love us unconditionally in our lives is our parents, for better or for
Mhm.
worse,
Yeah.
and when we have parents who we perceive that they didn't give us the love we needed, or we feel abandoned, and I think that Darcy and Stacey did feel abandoned by their dad, we spend the rest of our lives trying to convince people to love us, and hello,
Mm.
does that not encompass like their whole dating life, right?
Yeah.
Picking people who are bad for them, but instead of just walking away and finding someone better, convincing that person to just treat them better. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
I definitely think that's a pattern that I see with women who, have a parent wound, especially a father wound, and I think it's interesting that they still live with him because I think they're still trying to just get his attention,
Mhm.
which is sad, and he loves them clearly. I think he's a wonderful guy, but he was someone who was very focused on a lot of other things, and
Yeah.
I think that hurt
Yeah.
them very much, and instead of just processing that hurt or the grief or whatever, they buy another bracelet or get another eye job or something like that, and unfortunately, that's not gonna do it.
And do you think, extreme plastic surgery is an addiction?
I do, when it's extreme. I think
Yeah.
plastic surgery to, improve upon ourselves, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? If you use it
Yeah.
responsibly, using it for the right reasons. But I think anything in its extreme form is gonna rarely be healthy. Rarely.
Yeah.
I say rarely
Yeah.
because I don't wanna say never. Um, But because it's like, well, what is that about that you're trying so hard to radically, completely get rid of who you were, shift that person, and, I think there's addictive components to a lot of things that we see on these shows, like, again, shopping, the jewelry buying, the plastic surgery, a lot of it, there's definitely addictive components to a bunch of it.
Well, when we're talking about, father issues and picking the wrong person, that leads me to wonder about Brittany because
Mhm.
on the Valley, because
Yep.
I don't know what we know about her dad. Of course, we know her mom and I mean, her mom couldn't be God, what is her mom's name? It'll come to me in a second. It'll co
Oh, god. Yeah, I
it'll
can't think of it either.
Sherry. It's Sherry.
Thank you.
Sherry.
Yes,
Sherry. And Sherry and her
Sherry.
frosted lipstick and her last time we
Mhm.
saw her, I was like, she had a full mullet. We're like, "What's happening with Sherry's new hairdo?" But I think Sherry is a wonderful mom. I do think Sherry has also been married a few times, and we've never heard anything about Brittany's dad.
Yeah,
And I didn't watch Brittany and Jax Take Kentucky or whatever, so maybe the dad was on that show.
I didn't either.
Um,
Mm-mm.
but you do wonder what would make her continue to think, "Oh, I can change him. I can fix him. I'll be that one." Because I've
Mhm.
done that with lots of guys, like, well,
Yeah.
that I'll be the one. Like,
Mhm.
all those other girls couldn't change him, but I'm the one. Like, why? Why would I be the one, right? And I think a lot of young girls fall into that. So,
I
you
think
can't fall
so many women do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. He'll
what is it
change.
he'll change
I'm
what is it
sorry.
about Brittany, you think, specifically, like, if we're thinking about her?
So I think specifically with Britney, it's such a good point about you don't hear about her dad a lot. And to me, when you have someone in a reality TV setting and you're not hearing about one parent, usually to me that means there's something there.
Mhm.
And it could be for a million different reasons, but for all the things that I have watched, I've really never heard anything about Britney's dad. But I definitely believe that Britney, with the whole Vanderpump Rules crew, I think she always felt like an outsider. I think
Mhm.
she always felt like she didn't belong. And then I think because of whatever history that we don't know about, she really, like you joked about, and listen, I've done this too, and I'm a therapist, so I hope that makes people feel better. I have absolutely spent my life trying to convince losers to love me. So
Yes, yes. Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
please, no one feel badly, right? We all do it, but I think that Brittany got herself into the scenario where it was like, well, she's in this friend group and now she's on this show, and this is the person that she's chosen. But I really do think she leaned into that fallacy that we all do, which is I can make him change or he'll change for me, or maybe this could be different. And I think that if it weren't for Cruz, I don't know that she would have ever left.
I think that's interesting too because, as we know with the situation with Jax, as we know from the after shows and whatnot, which I did not have a chance to watch the latest after show. What we know from all of that is Jax did go to rehab twice. He did go to the first one and leave after a week. They didn't show that for whatever reason. But the
Gee, I
second,
wonder why.
I don't know why they
Hmm.
didn't show, but
They're giving
but
Jax quite a generous edit. I'm sorry, please continue.
you think so? I think they're.
Um,
I don't think they're giving him a generous edit. You do though.
well, I just think that Jax gets away with a lot of things that are just brushed away or whatever. Like what would be the point of that happening and them not show? I don't know. I feel a little irritated about Jack's thing right now, to be honest.
Yeah. I hope they're going to, at the reunion, dig into I mean, surely she because she has said it on the after show. I mean, he went twice, he went to that one, and then he left after a week, and then he went completely off the rails, and so I don't know if that's where we started filming, when he had
Mm,
gone completely he had gone once and come back, or if all of what we saw was that 1 week he came home, went off the rails, and went again, and they lumped it
right.
all together for continuity, I don't know. But I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you this, from my
Yeah.
experience of, my husband going to a treatment facility for 90 days, I have a brother-in-law that was in a treatment facility for 90 days. I know my friend's brother was in a treatment facility for 30 days. I know people that
Mhm.
have done the gamut. I know people who've
Mhm.
only done, IOP, intensive outpatient.
Right.
None of them allow you to have your phones, and none of them allow you to go home and check your mail or meet your kid in a park. Not one, never.
Mhm.
And he said on Watch What Happens Live, I can't help it. I mean, I shouldn't have been calling her, but they gave me my phone. I mean, I guess it's like the state of California. I don't know. I was like,
So I address this because, another thing that programs wouldn't allow you to do is wear your bar sweatshirt for like glorifying
correct.
alcohol in
Uh-huh.
all the time. That
All the
literally,
time.
because I've worked in a residential treatment facility. I've worked in IOPs and all the different levels of care. And there are two big things: the phone
Mhm.
and no glorifying substance use, meaning with shirts, t-shirts, sweatshirts. That's a huge thing. And so I looked up the state of California, they do have stricter rules and regs when it comes to cell phones, like not being able to take cell phones, but it's dependent upon each treatment facility and their rules and regulations, right? So
Mhm.
there, I guess I'm just gonna stop walking around the issue and say that it certainly seems like there are certain facilities where if it's private pay,
Uh-huh.
you can do a little bit more of what you want, right?
Uh-huh.
If the facility is about maybe money or
Mhm.
so sorry.
It's okay.
If
Have
it's
some water if
if
you
the
need to. It's all right.
facility is more about money,
Sure.
and less about treatment, then you're gonna get these different, shifts in rules, because I agree with you fully.
Mhm.
He did not do one thing. If you're on your phone 24/7 rage texting people, you're not paying attention to lectures. You're not ingratiating yourself into the sober community, which, by the way, is a huge part of inpatient treatment, right?
Yeah, and
Getting away.
your off time, you're sitting with other people that are there. You don't have a choice, there's the only people there,
Right.
right? I
Right.
mean, my
Yeah.
husband had and you will probably think this is pretty normal, he had, like, 30 minutes a day or maybe even every other day at the beginning, and he could call people, so, like, if I didn't answer when he
Yeah.
called, like, then we didn't talk because he
Yeah.
would go to the next person, he would, like, call his parents or whatever because that was it,
Mhm.
those were his 30 minutes, and sometimes he would call me and be like, "Well, you didn't answer the first time, so I called my parents, but now we have, like, 4 minutes," so I'd be like,
Right.
okay, well, I'm trying to figure out what to do about the electricity bill or something, we can just talk business. But,
Right.
you know, it was interesting because he was like, I'm in therapy 9 hours a day. And then,
No, you're not.
Jesse or whoever's like, but in between those, like if you got a 10-minute pee break, you went and grabbed your phone to rage text and then put it down and went back. How how are
Yeah.
you staying consistent with your care when even probably before bed, he would probably get to have it. And I will tell you this, where my husband went, there was the place where he went, and then there was like a fancier section of it that was for like
Ugh.
celebrities.
Okay. Yeah.
And he heard he heard
Mhm.
that in that section, the celebrities would get their cell phones at night, that they would be
Mhm.
allowed to have them for like an hour, for like business purposes or whatever. They would say
Yeah.
they would be allowed to use their own
Right.
personal device, not sit in a room with a phone bank with a ye old
Well,
telephone. Yeah.
let me tell you a little something funny. So the rehab that I worked at, we had a program for professionals. So professionals
Mhm.
meaning doctors, lawyers, nurses, people who held licensures that
Yeah.
had to work with the state to make sure that license was either intact or given
Yes.
back because of the substance use. And we used old school payphones. Like you didn't actually have to put the coins in, but
Yeah.
we turned them on and off. And let me tell you something. I don't care politicians, people who were important, the program that I was in, we don't give a shit who you are. We
Right.
don't give a
Yeah.
shit who you are. No, the whole part of getting into recovery is realizing that you're not special.
Yeah.
You're not special and you're not important, and this is
Right.
what you are here to do. So I definitely but it speaks to the fact that people with celebrity get treated, differently, and they shouldn't, right? There's certain programs that celebrities might not choose to go to because if, for example, if someone important came in and we had this happen and they're like, "Well, I need my phone." And we're like, "So that's not gonna happen." They would
Yeah.
decide to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that's very telling. I think it's very
It's super
telling.
interesting, and he said the reason, and I looked it up too, and the reason was the celebrities or whatever, and they stayed in kind of a different building. They had their own room, whereas where my husband was, he was in a room with like 2 other guys, but they had their own space, but they had their they shared a room, they shared a bathroom, and this
Mhm.
was more at the other place was those if you paid X amount of money more, you would have your own
Right.
room and your own bathroom. I was like, "Okay, I don't have any money for this. I definitely don't have money for that. What are you talking about? It's
Uh,
expensive," you
it
know?
and
You know?
that's the thing. Rehab is so expensive just for regular folks.
Yeah,
And so I think that what happens is you have these programs that might be legit, but they need the money because sometimes
yeah,
insurance doesn't want to pay out. I would have so many times where people would come into treatment, the insurance after a week would be like, "Well, they're done." And I'd have to
yeah,
argue with them and fight and do the
yes,
whole, that was the most aggravating part of the process. And I would usually win. I should have been a lawyer. I'm a very good litigator, but
yeah. Yeah, I
but
had a
I
guy, like, working on my behalf to get it paid for by insurance, but it was probably a year's worth of battle to
oh,
yeah,
it's ridiculous. But so the point being when you have someone who's willing to offer up a load of cash, treatment facilities may vary or bend and flex in terms of the boundaries. And, I don't want to be too judgmental about that. It is a business after all. But at the end of the day, I think it really is just about holding people accountable because you're not doing people any favors. It's a waste of everybody's time and money if people are being held to different standards because they're celebrities or they're rich or
yeah.
wealthy or whatever it is. Yeah.
God, wouldn't you love if just, like, somewhere along the way, somebody that was in treatment with Jax would just be like, "Hey, I know it's supposed to be anonymous, but I was in there with him, and here's what happened." Like, that dude never
Well,
came to a group. That dude only had this some kinda sweatshirt that said his own name on it, and,
mm.
that dude was lying and possibly sniffing cocaine in the bathroom. I mean, you know what
Oh,
I mean? Like, because it's he is saying the to me, it appears, he is saying the words that he
Mhm,
knows he is supposed to say, but he
mhm,
there is no meaning behind them. Even on Watch What Happens Live, which I think was his best performance yet, he you could tell he was biting back the "but," and, "but she did."
mhm,
You could tell he
mhm.
was it was hard for him to stop at the end of a statement and be like, "Oh, what I did was completely wrong. I shouldn't have done that." He because he wanted to go, "But, she did take Cruz and move out, so it wasn't like I kicked her out." Do you know what I mean? Well, no, you should have said,
Yeah.
"Do not take my child and leave. If this is how you feel, I will leave." He did it a little, but he tried very hard to just make his apology and quit, and you could tell he had been coached to do so because it's not in his nature to not end it
N
with a "but."
Right, and you can tell so when someone is saying the words, but their actions are, we would call it, like, incongruent, that
Uh-huh.
usually means that the person is full of shit, for lack of a better term. That's not
That's
a
your
clinical
professional
term.
term? It's a
That's my
it's
professional
medical.
term. You are
Mhm.
full of shit. So, let me be clear. Jax is full of it. His behaviors, and I've seen this a million times, right? He's not the only guy who goes into a treatment program and acts like this and acts like he's special. There's a term for it, and I talk about it on my podcast. People love it. It's called king baby. Have you heard of that
I have not
in the
heard of that, but
recovery space?
okay, I haven't heard that. I love it though. Yeah.
Okay, well, I say it all the time. People on my Instagram love it. They're like, "Oh, that's a king baby." So it's king and queen baby, right? It's it's
Uh-huh.
it's for everyone. It's not just relegated to men, but it's this concept in recovery where people get themselves into this, life's not fair,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
someone did this and someone did that, and that's where Jax lives. He lives in this king baby kind of state, And then what happens is he thinks that he's special and deserves different treatment and that life needs to bend to his will. And that's the recipe for addiction, because addiction is sometimes not even about the substance. It's about ego. It's about feeling that things should bend to our will. It's about those belief systems, that go hand in hand with addiction. And so Jax is the king baby if I've ever seen one.
Mm.
And he has shown me that he has no desire for change, no ability. Anyone can change, but they just have to have motivation to do so, genuine motivation. And when they're ready, they will.
Do you think, I mean, he said on the after show and laughed about it and said that he was like scored 9 on the narcissist scale. I was like, out of 9, or is it out of 10? But I mean, out of 9. I mean, if it's out of 9, then that sounds about right. He said that. He goes, "I scored like what? Like a 9 on that narcissist test?" So
Mhm.
I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay. How did you get to 9? How did you not get to 10?"
Well, I don't know what test he took, but I would believe that, he would have had a very high score. And, I think the most concerning thing about Jax is that he brags about, like, lacking empathy, right? He
Mm.
brags about these things like he thinks it's a flex, and I think that's the most concerning thing for me because, when people get into recovery, they're usually ashamed of this type of behavior. Like, someone
Yes.
in recovery would be like, if he had a sponsor or, if he was in the 12-step program, I know not everybody does that. His sponsor would check him hard and be like, "This is some bullshit behavior. Like, what is going on here?" And, I just think Jax is telling us all what he needs to say. I don't think we need someone from the treatment community to come out and say anything. I think we understand he's telling us where he's at. We just have to listen.
And Brittany has said too, she was like, "He hadn't changed. He hadn't changed one bit." She's
Mhm.
like, I mean, she says she does drug test him, and she knows that he drinks still, but she does drug test him before he's
Mhm.
allowed to see his son, which is smart. And,
Very.
but she says as far as that goes, he's not doing drugs anymore. But she was like,
Mhm.
"But he's still the same person." She's like, "He's rage texting me this morning." I mean, she's like, he's because he cannot control her, and he cannot
Mhm.
believe somebody broke up with him.
Yep.
That
Because I don't know
he
for
didn't
Jax if that's
facilitate
your
it by, like, because, like, with Stassi, he would cheat on her, so
right.
to force her to break up with him, right?
Mhm.
But in
Mhm.
this situation, it's just, "I'm breaking up with you because 'cause you're a bad person," and I don't think that's ever
Yep.
happened to him.
It definitely hasn't, and now I think, what's adding insult to injury for him is his son. And, the one thing I've said, to be clear, is you can't be a good father if you're being a terrible co-parent. I've
Mhm,
seen a lot of rhetoric about this online, and it's like, you can't be a good dad if this is what you're doing to Brittany, right? You're taking your child's resources away, trying to punish Brittany by not paying the mortgage. That's financial abuse, and that impacts your child. That's
mhm,
taking his sense of safety and security away. And so he can say he cares about his child all day long, but how we care about others is seen in our behaviors. Brittany
mhm.
is absolutely right. I trust her implicitly when it comes to this. And I think he sees his child as a chip to be won rather than a person to care for.
The fact that it was 7 days before he saw his child after he was on the camera crying about how he missed him and couldn't believe he couldn't see him, and that, I believe he's sad that he couldn't see his son, but that
Mhm.
he was just like, "Well, Brittany hadn't reached out." I was like, "No, you could get in your car and drive to where they are with a friend, take Schwartz with you." God knows the poor along surfing Schwartz is like,
Mhm.
fine. Take or Jason or Janet or somebody that she trusts, take them
Right.
with you. Say, "Hey, I wanna see my kid. They can be here." But there's not any reason for it to have been 7 days. And then
That's
him
my
to
point.
complain about it, like, as if she did it to him, right?
Right. This is my point. It's that you can put down a substance, but if the behaviors still exist, if you're still a chaos addict, if you're still doing these things, you're still in active addiction. Doesn't matter if you put the substance down. His
Chaos addict
behaviors.
is interesting.
Oh, yeah. I find this a lot of, times with 90-day people too, by the way, going back
Uh-huh.
to that for a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah.
There's a lot of people. Angelina from MTV is another good example from Jersey Shore. There are these
Okay.
people who may not have a substance, but they're addicted to chaos, and that is a very
Mhm.
huge part of addiction, and some people, it's just like they need that drama. Their
Mhm.
nervous system feels safe with chaos and drama, probably because of how they grew up, but Um, going back to the Jax thing, I just think that he is being super clear in his intentions when he behaves the way he does and makes no effort to change. I personally have called for him to be fired. I think at this point, there have been so many Bravo folks who have been fired for much less. Jax
Agree with
was
that.
fired for less
Mhm.
before, right?
Yep. And by the way, he got fired for the thing that he did again 2 weeks ago,
Thank you.
saying, "This is my show. It's my show. It's my show." I was like, "That is what you got fired for before. That's what Vicky Gunvalson got fired for." There was a third. There's 3 people that got fired for doing that.
Jennifer Aiden, wasn't it? Or no, am
N
I wrong?
no,
Maybe it was just other.
she acted terrible in a Jersey Mike's. Um,
Oh, that's right.
um,
That's right.
it'll come to me, like, probably tonight when I'm trying to go to sleep, but there was 3
Right,
people. It was Vicky, it was Jax, by saying, like, "I don't know what your problem is, you're on my show." And when
right.
you say to Lisa Vanderpump, when the name of the show is Vanderpump, to tell Lisa, my show," and she's like, "Excuse me." So I and then he said it again to Zach. Zach was the
Of
hero on
course.
that Zach was the hero of that episode, by the way.
He's been the hero of many an episode,
So good.
Zach. Just such a good friend, so hilarious. He is not afraid of no ghost. He's like,
Yeah.
"I'm not afraid of no ghost. I don't care. I'm gonna tell Jax what's up. I'm gonna let people know." I'm just loving Zach. He's just such a breath of fresh air.
I know when he goes, "Not for the last 30 days."
I know, I was like,
Um
"Oh, oh,
So
oh."
good. He was good. He was very good on this week's episode of The Ballet, getting
Mhm.
ready for Kristen's engagement and stuff, and then I really
Yeah.
liked the kind of the, mature conversation they had around, like, Janet and Jason coming and putting on the shirt and the whole thing, but then, of course,
Mhm.
Janet, I was like and I think Janet is great TV, but I'm like and Janet to be like, "Well, we just don't even have to stay for the rest of the trip because we're like, "Okay." And Jason
Right.
goes, "Let's just make it clear, you were invited. They just said you are invited, and you
Right.
agreed because it's her special day and you guys aren't good right now that it would be a bad idea. So you were invited." And she's like,
Right.
"Well, let's just go to dinner and maybe we just won't do anything the rest of the trip." He's like, "What are you talking about?" And I liked how he said, "We got a babysitter. This trip is for us too." You
Yeah,
know?
he's like, "I took time off work. Bitch, this
Yeah.
is happening."
Yeah. We're in Maui. We're
Yeah,
if
yeah.
they're going to the beach, we're going to the beach, you know?
But to me, that whole scene, it was so clear to me that once Janet realized it was about Kristen, she just
Yeah.
completely spiraled and melted down. But
'Cause she's
here's the
like, "The
thing with
whole trip is about Kristen now." I was like, "Okay,
right.
you're still on a free
Something
trip to Maui," you
I
know?
know, which is like how like sometimes the entitlement of some of these people, I'm like, are you kidding for a free trip to Hawaii? I
Yeah.
don't care if we were celebrating Jax. I would enjoy my time on
Even
my
though I just
schedule.
even though I just called for him to be fired, I would
Yeah.
celebrate him
I
for a
would
free trip.
that's how much I love Hawaii. I would enjoy that trip, honey, okay? But I think that Janet, when it's not about her and it's about someone else who she doesn't like, I think she feels very invalidated, but the way that she
Mm,
acts is just so rude and entitled. But the other thing I noticed is how her emotional intelligence, like her EQ, when Jason's around, it seems to be very high. But as
mhm,
soon as he goes away, it's like completely gone. And so as a therapist, I was fascinated by this switch because normally you don't see that. If someone has the capability to have this level of emotional intelligence, you usually don't see a switch back and forth. And so I feel that's really interesting with Janet, which shows me that she really likes to ride the petty train. Like that's
mm.
like one of her favorite things to do, but she has the ability to have emotional intelligence when she's has eyes on her. I think that's fascinating.
I I like her and Jason together so much because 'cause I'm like, they seem to be such a solid couple, and when they were on Watch What Happens Live, they were, like, funny and cute together, and he's just like, "Oh, yeah, she does these she's just wacky Janet," and I he seems to always take up for her even though maybe I don't know, I think maybe when they get home, he's like, "You know what? That was not cool." Like, what "Come on,
Yeah,
girl.
I
Like, don't
I
embarrass me like that." Yeah.
I do think he tends to do that, which is probably why she is emotionally intelligent. It's just
Mhm.
whether she chooses or not to use it. Because Jason does seem like the type of guy that I think because he's a lawyer, sometimes I think he has very black and white thinking about, like, what's
Mm.
right and wrong,
Mhm.
which may just be a hazard of the job, but he definitely tends to seems like the type of person who, when she's wrong, he'll let her know, you're wrong for this. And truly, that is what makes a better person, because I've been with my husband for 23 years and we have to hold each other accountable. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you were acting like a jerk, or hey, like, what was going on here? That's how we all learn and grow if we're doing this thing called life right. So it's not about being perfect, but I just think she repeats the same behavior over and over. And sometimes the lack of empathy for me is really off putting. It's like, ooh, yikes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, I can't remember how much you and I talked about the Nia and Danny thing last time, but I'm very interested in it because I see a lot of, Danny's behaviors that are like triggering to me, being married
Hmm.
to somebody who was in active alcoholism before. A lot of
Hmm.
these hiding behaviors, a lot of these like everybody else does it, no big deal. I need to catch up because everybody's been drinking. Like a lot of the words that come out of his mouth, a lot
Rationalization. Yeah.
and a lot of the looking to see what his wife is doing and putting the drink down, and then when she comes over, "Oh, I saved this for you because 'cause I'm trying to show you that I'm being honest," when you're not,
Right. Right.
the hiding let me tell you, the hiding in the pantry was like, that got me. That got me. I was like, "Oh, that's not good. That's not
Yeah, I
good."
mean,
Right.
I can't tell you how many people came into treatment after they were found doing something like that, because
Mhm.
secrecy, the one thing I can tell you that makes all issues worse is secrecy, because secrets
Yes.
really do keep us sick, and they do
Mhm.
say that in the recovery space, and it is
Mhm.
honestly the truth. And so I think that to to regular folks, they might look at that and say, what's the big deal? But for folks who have had those experiences, or who have clinical experience, personal, professional, whatever, you realize how problematic the lying really becomes. And the rationalization, the excuses, right? Well, I have to catch up. I have to catch up. I got here late. It's like it's like from the handbook of Addiction 101.
It
He's
is.
checking all those boxes. So I understand you and other people being triggered for sure.
It's interesting too that, what I have said many times about anybody I know that'll say like, "Oh, so and so, I cannot believe they were" you girl or boy or whoever, man, woman, be like, "Oh, I can't believe they were so drunk. I mean, we had like 2 drinks." And I'll go, "Let me guarantee you they didn't have 2 drinks. Let me guarantee you they had 5 before they arrived because they wanted to be at a
Mhm.
level before they arrived." So, yeah,
Right.
it looks to you that they had 2 drinks and passed out, but that's not the case. And we found that with whoever that life coach is, that weirdo, put your hand on my heart, that guy, whoever he is, when he got Danny to admit, "Oh, it's shameful," and he got him to admit, like,
I
"So
know.
sometimes you may take a few drinks without somebody knowing because you don't want them to know how many drinks you had because 'cause you're ashamed." And he just nodded and said, "Yeah," and I was like, "Can we now dig into this? Can we ask some
Mhm.
follow-up questions?" Nope, let's just move on to Jack's.
But this is a problem with these, what should I call them? Like, non-professional professionals? I don't know
Yeah,
how to characterize them. This is the exact problem, because in a group setting, I've led bazillions of groups. It's one of the main components of inpatient treatment, in
yeah,
addition to, like, all the other stuff. And, when you have a group of people, and Danny got to that point, there could have and should have been more delving into that for Danny's sake, not
yeah,
for us, not for entertainment value, not for Bravo, for Danny. But when you have this kind of quasi, these men will do anything to just avoid real therapy.
yeah,
They'll just, it's insane to me. And that's what you get with this guy, where it's like, okay, so he admitted this on TV, and now I guarantee I could see the shame on his face. I could see the shame, I could see the guilt, and I wondered how that impacted him later, and how did that impact his drinking for the next couple of days. So I think there's a real responsibility that is lacking, in that scene, number one. And number two, I also think putting your hands on people, touch, is a really tricky intervention. And I don't, it should only really be present if it's adding something, or it's adding value, or if it makes a lot of sense. And I just thought that whole scene just reeked of like, let's do this for TV, but in reality, it could have been really damaging.
I I think that there's a whole, and even though it's just a bunch of dudes that are friends or whatever, I think there's a real consent issue there because I think even if I was sitting around with a bunch of my friends and we had no problems or whatever, but you wanted to say like something to them, if they said to me like, "You need to put your hand on your friend's hand and look them in the eye or on their," what I'd be
Mhm.
like, "No, I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
That's not natural to me. I would not naturally hold my friend's hand or in this case, these guys to be like, "I'm gonna put my hand on your chest," and that's not like a natural way of
Mm-mm.
these bros would be speaking.
Right.
So it makes them you start off feeling weird before you can even say what the truth is, this man session they were having or whatever, and so many people
Yeah.
compared it to that Louis Reellis, sweating on the beach, like, "I wanna say I love you, and I'm sorry." "Say it louder. I'm sorry for what I
Uh,
did. Say it more."
yes.
People
Yeah.
compared it to that. They were like they were waiting for them all to take their shirts off and start sweating and screaming at the camera.
I
But
mean, there's no lies detected there. But yeah, I don't think for men, there I think when you put your hands on someone like that or force them to be face to face, it does impede the progress of whatever it is you're trying to do. And again, these little things, that's how I could tell that this person wasn't maybe trained in the way that they needed to be trained, because these
mhm.
were a lot of mistakes that I feel like impeded. And it also, like, when you have people talking about deep intimate things, there has to be a processing. It's called a group process for a reason. There are books and books and books written on it. It's not just a life coach sitting people down and saying, tell him your grievance, now let's get up and walk away. There
Yeah.
needs to be a processing to this so that there's not these issues later. The whole thing was just, it was not great, in my
It was
opinion, not
definitely
great.
a missed opportunity to delve into especially because all these guys have been on Danny about his drinking and have Danny admit, like, "Hey, some of what you have been saying is right. May I
Mhm,
don't like maybe your approach, but what maybe I" and then when the guy said, "Maybe you have extra drinks when nobody's looking because you feel shame," and you could
mhm,
tell it kinda dawned on him I do that, and I do feel bad about it, and it dawned on him
right.
in that moment he was doing it, and then I was like, "Okay, well, this is the conversation we should be moving forward with because Jack's just got out of a treatment center, so maybe he could even add something here, and then you've got Jason who's been accusing him of this, and it's like Jesse who's got his own set of bullshittery, like, we could hey, let's try to help our friend here. He's not
Yeah.
gonna, like, decide tomorrow to stop drinking, but at least maybe this is a conversation that got his wheels spinning like, "Oh, wow, maybe I do see now what these other people are seeing in my behaviors."
Right, and
Yeah.
I do think that it's such a good point. The one and only good thing that came out of that is that I think, there's a saying, "It's not what you say, but how you say it."
Mm.
And Jason and some of these other guys have been, like, chasing Danny with pitchforks and yelling, "You're an
Yeah.
alcoholic," which is always gonna put people's defenses up. But
Yeah.
it just goes to show when you approach someone with curiosity and kindness. I mean, in the addiction community, like, most people don't come to rehab and they're like, "Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Let me dive in." There's a certain
Yeah.
amount of meeting that resistance and understanding, right? There's this whole thing called the stages of change. Prochaska and DiClemente talk about, you know, when someone's in this level of denial or resistance, there's ways that you have to approach it. And the life coach actually did a good job of that. As you said, it was just a real missed opportunity to, like, say, "Okay, well, let's talk more about that,
Yeah.
let's not just leave this here," and that
Give an
also I think could have
opportunity for
been
the other guys to hear him
exactly.
and be like, "Oh, wow, we shouldn't be approaching this like this because actually this is a bigger issue," and not
Yes.
I think if they really thought he like Jax, when they really realized Jax is like a full cokehead that is, doing physical damage in his home and possible domestic abuse allegedly,
Mhm,
when they realize this is happening, they don't treat it as like, "Oh, Jax is so crazy." They're all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, this is serious. He needs some help." So
mhm.
this was a missed opportunity for them to sort of like hear what Danny said and be like, we should be coming at him with compassion and understanding
Right.
instead of like, "Why'd you take a drink in the closet with Janet? She was uncomfortable," you know?
That's
Yeah.
exactly right, and it makes me think that it's less about their compassion and concern, and it's more about, revenge or payback or making a show. I don't know,
Storyline.
though.
Mhm.
I can't read into that too much because there's too many other contextual, like, unknowns, but it does beg that question, well, how much do you really care about your friend, if no one chimed, like, if that were me and I were sitting in that group, I would have been like, "Wow, Danny, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you
Yeah.
for being vulnerable.
That was
I
hard to
hear
say.
you."
Yeah.
Yeah, like something, like, "Thank you," whatever, but it was just like total silence, so
And then like, let's talk, Jax, do you have any regrets? And he's like, I regret that my wife is a bitch and put me in rehab. And I regret that I didn't get Botox 24 hours when I got home. I did it 48.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
regret that my haircut's not high and tight enough. You're just
Yep.
like, where are the regrets? It's more about, I'm just having a hard day, man. Just having a hard day. Like, okay, everybody here's having a hard day. Shut up.
Everyone has life is hard for everybody,
Yeah, that's right.
but, Jack's another term I use for it, he loves to take a swim in the pity pool. People in active addiction, like, they love
Yeah,
a pity pool moment, they
love.
just swim, and then until they get pruny and they're like, "Nope, I'm not coming out," and it's like, "Well, that's why you're pruny, my friend, your brain is pruny."
That is so funny. Now you told me that you are watching Next Gen NYC. I've dipped in and
Cool.
out of it just because I've got so many other shows on my plate, but it was on
Sure.
last night and I
Mhm.
kind of was like, okay, um, who's mad at who because of why? I know that they were making fun of Ariana for saying she had a clothing line because she has no style. I was like, ooh, it's not nice.
Yep.
Um, I know that Brooks was saying last night that his mother had terrible style until he got a hold of her, which I sorta loved
I was
because
like,
she
I
was saying
love
something
Brooks.
about and she goes, "This is my style, like monochromatic." And he goes, "You don't even know what your style is. I know. I'm the one that told you what your style was." And she's like,
That's right.
"Okay, Brooks." That was great. Um, and what was going on with Riley,
Yes.
Candy's
I
daughter? Tell me what was happening there because I'm trying to understand. There's some sort of allegations of racism, so tell me what that's
Yes.
about. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so this is what happened. Charlie is there's a couple of housewives' kids, and then there's, like, other cast members, and Charlie is the oldest cast member at age 30. We don't know why he's there, but he's a spoiled rich kid. He
He's
is
a
a
crypto
trust
bro.
fund
Yeah,
baby, right?
yeah.
But I think he trades very little crypto and just does more, cashing his allowance checks,
Mhm.
allegedly. But Charlie had an issue with Riley, and when he confronted her about the issue, he wagged his finger and rolled his head and pursed his lips, imitating Riley as a black woman.
Ooh.
And yeah, it was real ugly. It was gross and it was bad. And
Did everybody just, like, look at him like, "Bro, what are you doing?"
well, not as so they didn't show anyone standing up to him. They showed so Riley stood up for herself and she did it in such an elegantly beautiful way because listen, people of color, they don't owe the explanation to anybody, but she
Right.
gave it to him anyway and she let him know this is a microaggression. This is what you did. This is how you did it. And of
Good.
course, because he is probably a king baby himself, Charlie, he just ran away from the situation and said, "Well, I'm not racist," and then just continued on his bullshit. Like he's a real Bravo guy. Let's be real. He
Okay,
fits
yes,
in
okay,
well
great.
with the Jessies and the Jackses. Like he's just a
Perfect.
junior version. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and so, but apparently in that scene that was cut out, I think Mandy Slutzker told me this is that Brooks did stand up for her because the one thing I love about this cast is that they are intolerant to intolerance. And that's
Mhm.
something that I absolutely love.
It's that
Um,
generation, really. It's that generation.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, which is just like it warms my heart because so many people on the show, are gay or, pansexual or trans, and so they take that very seriously, and when Candy Burris found out about what happened, oh my god, did she blow her top, but I just Riley handled it in such a beautiful way to explain to him. She kept her cool, but she stuck to her guns that, like, this is a microaggression, that's not okay, and so in this last episode, Charlie was confronted by Georgia about like nobody on the show likes you. Why are you here? And then he pulled a Jax and was like, well, no one on the show would have been cast if it wasn't for me. I was like, oh, Charlie, you're Jax Jr. You're saying this is your show, bro? That's wild.
Okay. Wasn't he
Okay.
just, a part of that guy that got kidnapped and beat up?
He was, and I can tell you
Yeah,
about that because I read the article. So Charlie was couch surfing on this crypto guy's couch, and the guy allegedly, but you can read about it, Google it.
yeah,
He and Charlie were in the apartment, and the guy who was arrested, I think his name was John, he was charged with torturing his
yeah.
Italian cryptocurrency partner, including like torture, taser, electrocution, and allegedly Charlie was there. So what
Yeah,
does
because he
that
was
tell
trying
you
to get the
about
guy's
Charlie's
crypto he was
character?
trying to get the crypto passwords for that guy's crypto account. That's why he's a crypto bro. Listen,
Right.
not every story about any crypto bro, somebody's always dead. Somebody ends up dead in these
Literally.
crypto bro stories every single time. So
Mhm.
the fact that they were like, yeah, this show is about to start, and this guy, Charlie, was staying at this place where this other guy was being like tortured for his passwords, which by the way, he never gave the passwords. They ended up throwing him out on the street because he was like, all right, well, you didn't give it to us. We'll just let you go. Could have gone the other
Yeah.
way. It goes a lot the other way with a lot of these crypto bros, they get killed. So
Oh, for sure.
fascinating. So for sure, if they're I don't know if they're gonna have a reunion or what, but it seems like it'll be one of those, with Charlie, maybe. We don't know him because, then again, maybe not. We are talking about Bravo. So,
You're
yeah.
right, we are talking about
Yeah,
Bravo, so who knows, but it just seems like going forward, I don't see how it would be possible for him, because like, the rest of the cast, they're really lovely, tolerant, smart, good people, and I just think he's that one thing that just doesn't fit in, doesn't belong, but you're right, we'll have to see. I hope there is a reunion because the cast, not only is it surprisingly good, because I wasn't even gonna cover it, but then I watched it, I'm like, "Oh, this is good." The other cute thing for me that came out of this last episode is that Riley and Ariana, who were on Atlanta when they were like 5,
yeah,
and they
together.
flashed back to their cute little faces.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I almost died. They're literal best friends now. And I
Yeah.
swear to you, I could have cried real tears because I just feel like Kim Zolciak is still on her bullshit of stealing money from people,
Mm.
allegedly.
Yeah.
So, which is why she and Candy, right? They don't that's why they fell out. And now Kim
Yes.
is just taking money from her own child.
Which is so
That's
gross.
a whole other thing. But I love that Riley and Ariana are just the best of friends. I just think that's the sweetest Bravo, like unexpected connection.
Yeah, I
Oh, I
like it.
love it.
I like it too,
Yeah.
and I mean, but Kim Zolciak has 4 other kids,
Yes.
4 other
Yes.
young children. And I it was interesting because I did see that whole first episode when Ariana, we just, like, came out of the gate with, like, "No, my parents stole money. They stole my money." I did,
Mhm.
TikToks and Instagram Lives and Amazon, everything from the time I was, 14 and never saw a dime. It was my money and they stole it. Like, she
Yep.
didn't say, like she flat out said stole.
Oh,
And then
she did,
and
and she went on Watch What Happens Live recently, and Andy confronted her about this, and she doubled down and said the same thing, and Andy asked, "Well, did you tell your parents that you were gonna be saying this?" And she said, "Yes." Ariana said, "I wanna be clear that it wasn't just my mom, it was my mom and my dad, and I
yeah.
told them that I was going to be telling the truth about this." And I think people need to understand how great of a thing that is for Ariana to do to tell her truth,
Mhm.
because she is still, quote, unquote, "best friends" with her mom, which I swear I could do a whole podcast deep dive into that because I think that's really interesting. But I love that she didn't keep their secrets and she just told it very matter of factly. But on Watch What Happens Live, she also said that they did the same thing to Brielle.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, yeah, I mean, Brielle was
Yeah.
first, and then they ran
Yeah.
out of her money, so they went to Ariana's. Yeah,
Correct. Yeah. Mhm. And I
and
think
then
that
so
Ariana does still pay for things because of her siblings. I think that Kim and Croy, well, so Ariana said that she basically doesn't really talk to Croy anymore, like, he'll always be her dad. So she
Mhm.
still talks to her mom, they're best friends, she doesn't talk to Croy, but I think she does this stuff for her siblings.
Yeah, of
I
course.
just wish she would have better boundaries and understand that her mom's poor choices aren't her responsibility. And I think Kim should feel ashamed of herself for being willing to put her child behind the starting line so that she could ball on social media. Because let's face it, this is not money going for food stamps or this is
Yeah,
Kim's living large. She's doing the
yeah,
same thing she's always doing. And the other note is that Ariana, when Andy asked about her gambling, she shut down really quick and she said, "I'm not going to discuss that." Which fair, right? Fair enough. And I understand and respect her desire to keep that private, but it was very telling, the response.
yeah. I need to catch up and watch What Happens Live too. That's another thing I need to do because sometimes, like, I save
Mhm.
them up. Like, last night, I would try to, like, stay up because I was like, "Oh, I think it's gonna be somebody from the valley," and then I was like, "I gotta go to bed."
I
Mommy
know
gotta go
it's
night night.
hard. It's
It's really
hard
hard.
being this content creator in middle age, man.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
it's hard.
Really quick, speaking of middle age, are you watching the current season of Atlanta? We just had the finale.
I am. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what do we think about because I missed the whole episode wherever this guy, Marcus, whatever his name was, whenever
Mhm.
he came in and he said, "Let's toast to Charles Oakley being a cheater" or whatever. So
Yeah.
I missed that entire party. So I either missed one or two episodes.
Okay.
Because I left them in Grenada. Isn't that
Mhm.
where they were? Grenada. And
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
came back and then we're at the finale. So, okay, first of all, they just are constantly calling Brit a whore. I mean, just like it's just nonstop. It's just like, well, you're a whore. I'm like,
I
wow.
know.
Wow. So that's crazy. So then we had, and she's not going to the reunion because she's suing Bravo, which I mean, okay. And then the whole thing about they bring in this guy, and Charles Oakley's like, I'm going to kick this guy's ass in the middle of this charity event. Like, and she's like, you have to trust me. She should have told him beforehand. You have to trust
Yeah.
me. This guy's going to come in and tell the truth. But it seems like the
Mhm.
guy came in and did not tell the truth. It said it was Phaedra.
Right, and Phaedra was like we were all like, "Not again, Phaedra. No, you
Phaedra's
just
like, she's like, I just got back in this
She
group.
was
Y'all
like,
think I
"I
would
just
do that?
got back." But honestly, that's the problem when people lie about really huge things. You can't trust them. You can't believe things that they say. So to me, this whole Michigas, it's like it's so confusing. You don't know who to believe. I kind of believe that it was Brit. I think
Me
Brit
too.
is like, while they shouldn't have been calling her a whore, Brit is one of the most problematic people, housewives, to be added to Bravo, I would argue, in a really long time. I think
Hmm.
she has dangerous qualities. I think her behavior is incredibly concerning.
Hmm.
And quite frankly, I'm glad that she's suing the suing the network so she won't be back. But I definitely I tend to think it was more her, and I don't know that Phaedra would really do that to herself after not only burning the bridge with Bravo that she's getting a second chance, she also burned the bridge with her Married to Medicine people, which I died when Angela brought that up. She's like, "You can't make any friend groups work." And I was like, "Oop." And she, the oak is right. The oak is right. And Phaedra
Oh,
cannot make any of her friendships work. And when that is the case, you got to look at the common denominator.
I do not believe Phaedra would come back for half of a season and screw it up that badly. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think she would hire this guy. And then I love how Cynthia Bailey's like, now Phaedra's a lawyer. She's not handing somebody an envelope of anything. She's like,
That's right.
she's gonna like
But
meet this guy in a bar and hand him an envelope like a dossier, like go to this party, stay to this group. When it's time to do a cheer, you know what I mean? Like, no,
I
uh-uh.
know, but she did lie about, Candy and Todd wanting to assault Portia, which, like, so to me, it's like, well, as a lawyer, I can't use that anymore because as a lawyer, she should have known how egregious that would have been. So I don't
Yeah.
trust Phaedra. I find her funny, but I do tend to agree with you that I don't see her trying to actively do something to mess this up, especially after the first time around.
And especially because Kenya just got kicked off like 4 weeks before for doing something horrible. And then you're
Right.
gonna have to be on your P's and Q's. You can't be meeting some guy named Marcus in a bar and handing him an envelope. I just don't
Right.
believe that happened. I really don't. I don't know who did it, but I don't believe Phaedra did
Yeah.
it. And maybe
Yeah.
I'm just a Phaedra apologist. Sometimes we have our people on Bravo and we just can't see. Like even when
Yeah.
you're saying the whole thing about Candy and Todd, my whole thinking is like, here's what I think. I think she knew that Candy and Todd were swingers or like to bring a girl in sometimes and fine, that's who cares? That's their marriage. But
Mhm.
and they've admitted to that too. And
Yeah.
I think Phaedra had some drinks and got carried away with her own story. That's what I think happened.
Mm.
I think she fully said the thing
Right.
about they're trying to like drug you and take you home. But I think she got carried away with she heard
Mm.
somebody say, "Oh yeah, Portia was saying she's going to go home with them," and she's going, "Well, I heard." Just to make it, in the words of my dad, it makes a better story. Just to put a little
Sure.
spice on it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
she didn't know how far, and then she had to like stick with her lie. So
Mm.
she shouldn't have done it. And she should have got kicked off for it. That's true. Um,
Right.
but now she's back. I don't think, I mean, I'm sure this filming was like only a month or two because she had to come on post Kenya. They had to bring her on.
Right,
So I
right.
don't think they're like, we're bringing you in at half salary. We'll show us what you can do, and then we'll bring you back
Mhm.
on if you can not cause any major problems. She's not going to do this.
Right. Simply and you know what? That point, like, simply for her bag, I don't know that she would fuck this up, right?
Right.
Pardon my
Yes.
language, simply for because Phaedra really is looking at trying to be a mogul. She's, molding her sons, who, by the way, are just the most amazing creatures. Just
Yeah.
Dylan's, like, making these clothes, and Andy wore Phaedra brought Andy, leather pants that Dylan made for him. He wore them on Watch What Happens Live, and you know what? Honest to God, they were really cute. They were really adorable,
See,
and
this
I
is what
just
happens when I miss Watch What Happens Live. I got to get on it.
well,
Yes.
again, but I get we gotta sleep, girl, right? We
Yeah, I gotta sleep. Yeah, yeah.
middle age is calling it at 10 o'clock. She's like, "Come on, it's
Yes,
time."
totally.
So, but yes, to your point, I agree that it probably wasn't her. But when Marcus called her the godmother of Atlanta, I was
So funny.
I was like, "Oh my god, that's
And
hilarious."
she's in that outfit with those feathers, and she's like,
Yeah,
"Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I'm the godmother." It was so funny.
so
I'm
funny.
excited about the reunion now. I'm excited about the reunion.
Same, and it's
Yes.
funny because we're going back and forth about what Phaedra did in the past, but they revisit it. Did you see the preview for the reunion?
No, I haven't seen it.
Yes, Shamia and Portia start to argue about Candy and what happened, and then Phaedra gets looped into it. So it's almost like a very delayed continuation of that reunion where it all blew up. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna be like seated with a magnifying glass, just
Yes.
very excited to watch all of it.
Okay. Now, Miami, I also caught up on, and I did miss a little bit of that episode where they were in Milan or wherever they were for Fashion Week.
Mhm.
Larsa and Lisa wear me completely out. I don't want to hear anything else about them. I'm tired of I just want Marisol and Alexia on my screen as a
Yeah,
frickin' frack, a Lucy and Ethel. That's
right.
all. I just need a show with just them, basically, is what I'm saying.
Mary Payne, can I tell you something so fascinating? So I never watched Miami because I feel allergic to Larsa, like
Okay.
literally itchy, like physically, my throat starts to close. I itch.
Okay.
I can't
Uh-huh.
take it. So, and I always felt that way about her, even like whatever she's doing with herself now. And that's the same reason I didn't start watching Vanderpump Rules initially, because I felt the same way about Jax. I felt itchy and allergic to him, which I'm
Mm.
glad to know I still got it, and my
Yeah.
assessment skills are still spot on.
Yes.
I cannot. So I started watching the season 7, the first several episodes, because I was like, I just got to dive in. I got to get into it. Larsa annoys me so much. Lisa also, but Larsa just gives like no empathy. I don't like the way she talks to her kids. I don't like the way she talks about her kids. I don't like the way she talks to anyone. But Marisol and Alexia are just I love their energy. I love everything about them, and I just love Miami. The culture, it's
Yeah.
so bright, it's fun. But don't get me wrong, I mean, it started with drama like episode 1, which you don't often see in like a
Yeah.
Housewives franchise. And so I was like, man, I've been sleeping on Miami. So if anyone else listening to this is sleeping on it, hit it. Get in, because I'm telling you, it's really good.
I never watched it in my life. And then I think last year or maybe 2 years ago, I was like, all right, I have to do it. I just started from season 1 because they had those 2 or 3 seasons and then they had that like
Right.
8-year break. And so
Yeah.
I did it. I did the first. So, and when
You
you
did.
watch it like that, it's pretty jarring, especially Larsa looked like an entirely different human.
Entirely different.
Entirely different human. You're like,
Literally.
whoa. And Adriana as well. I really was like, who is
Mhm.
that? Are we supposed to believe that's Adriana? She's super annoying. If she was in my friend group,
Yeah.
I would be avoiding at all costs. Um,
Mhm.
Julia has always been such a sweet baby angel, and I don't know what's gotten into her.
Can
I
I
don't know
tell you
what's
my
gotten into her.
theory? Okay,
Yes.
this is my theory. I was podcasting with someone and I was like, "Oh my god, I think I figured it out." So Julia lost a son
Yeah.
to being shaken
Yeah.
a while back, right? And so now they have adopted 2 sons,
Right.
and I would tend to guarantee that she has unresolved grief that is literally triggering her, because when you see someone who they're normally sweet, but then their energy is so elevated, it's usually like, what is this about for them? And
Mhm.
I personally believe that having these 2 new boys is
Mhm.
triggering a lot of fear around
Mhm.
who's around these kids, because look at what happened last time.
Mhm.
I need to attend to them, I need to attend to myself, and I think it's causing her a lot of psychological stress, but I can tell that she's not aware of it.
Mm.
She may now be, but in
Yeah.
that moment, I could tell that she was so like, afterwards, she was like, "Wait, what did I do? Why did I do that?" That is very typical of people who have had trauma that get triggered and behave in ways that are not, congruent to who they are. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean she's a bad person. I think she's just, having a lot of grief and fear, and she's just very triggered. That's my thought, and I could
That
be
makes a lot
very
of
wrong.
sense. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Well, I love Miami, so I'm looking forward to the Atlanta reunion. I'm looking forward to continue watching Miami. I'm going to continue to just dip in and out of Next Gen NYC because even this week
Mhm.
when I was watching it, there was a new girl on there. She was like a club promoter or something, and she was trying to host Meredith's party. I was like, "Who's that? I don't remember
Oh,
her.
Georgia. Yeah,
I don't
Georgia.
remember her. I don't want to have to know a new person. I already got to
Well,
get a whole new like 90-day cast. I'm like, who are these people? Yeah,
listen, maybe the show is just not for you. I think for me, I always look at what do I genuinely feel interested in
yeah,
watching or covering, and
yeah,
I just think you have to listen to that, because if you're not into it, like, it's not gonna be fun, and,
yeah.
you cover a lot of other things too, so maybe it's not just for you, but,
I know, it's just like me with Summer House. I tried it. I tried it so many times. I was like, I
yeah,
just can't.
that's fair.
I know it makes me a liability that for other like Bravo podcasters that might want to
No.
talk about it, but I'm like, I can't. I could talk about Paige Sorbo being cute and having great style. I could talk about that. I know that. That's all I know.
Yeah, of course.
I met Lindsay at BravoCon 2 years ago. She's very tall, very tall.
Yes,
That's all I
tall.
got. That's
Nice
all
in
I got.
person? She lovely?
She was fine. Yeah.
Mm,
Hey, I was like, I didn't say to her, I don't know you. I don't watch your show. I was just like, Lindsay,
right.
can I get a picture? She's like, absolutely, girl. And I was like, let me get on my tiptoes
Tippy
to to get up to your armpit. But
Yeah.
yeah, she was totally nice. Um, well, that is it. I think we've covered it all. I think
Mhm.
we, in the words of Sean Robinson on a 90-day reunion, we're not going to solve this today. Sean Robinson says that on she'll be talking to a couple and they can say, "Well, when I was 7, my mom was killed and then I didn't have a mother and then so now I've married to this woman who's 55 and I think that's going to take care of my issues, but um, she also murdered somebody when she was a child, so it's fine." And Sean Robinson will go, "Hmm. Well, you know what? We're not going to solve it today. Let's move on." And you're like, "Wait a minute. What?" Yes.
I do love
He's
Sean Robinson and her
yeah.
transitions. They are pretty classic.
She's like, "We wish you the best." You're like,
We
"Wait a
wish you
minute.
the best, but
Wait."
this is above my pay grade, and we've
Yeah,
got to move on now.
she's like, "Somebody told me." She's always doing this. "Well, I've just been told." You're like, "Did you
This is
watch the
why
show?"
This is why I would die to be in the position of Sean, or, like, on a reunion, because it's so much rich opportunity that, you don't necessarily get to delve into those deeper pieces that I would just scratch and dig, and I'd get in there. Oh,
Yeah.
it's amazing. So
Sometimes when
anyone
they've had, like, Kenny and Armando on, Kenny will be like, "Excuse me, I need to follow up." Or like, "Can Kenny host the reunion?"
Yes, literally, I love them. Oh my god, they're the absolute sweetest couple. I adore them. So put me in, coach, whoever's listening, I'm ready. I can
I
do it.
well, we've heard that for this Hunt for Love, which will be the next reunion we get, which is the, like, the secondary show that's on now, we have heard that Suki, that does the Sister Wives reunion, is going to be doing this next reunion, and
Oh,
that we don't know if it's a tryout, and if she's good, she'll replace Sean Robinson, or if they're gonna put Suki on, like, the secondary shows and keep Sean Robinson on the higher level shows, but
me.
we just it's time to switch it up. It's time to switch it up.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Could use some fresh
yeah,
face. Yeah,
yeah. I'd love a 90-day Bravo crossover. It makes me so happy that you watch everything like I do.
I do. And so
Yeah.
I'm taking a break from my podcast right now, but when I come back, I will definitely be having you on, because I think that there's a lot that we can discuss
Oh,
in the
sure.
90-day world too. Yeah, so I can't wait to have you on when I come
Yeah,
back. I just needed a
so
break
much.
because Ugh, girl needed a minute.
That's
But
fine. Do that. You should do that.
yep.
Um, Tell everybody though where they can follow you in the meanwhile until your podcast comes back.
Yes, so you can follow me at your Bish, Bish therapist on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Blue Sky, YouTube. And so I'm on my break from my free podcast, which is
Mm.
available everywhere. But I also have a Patreon that is on and
Oh,
popping. We do
okay.
chats. I post. So like when I do my M&M hours with Mandy Slutsker, and I'll still do episodes like on my breaks, but I just post it for Patreon members. So if
Yeah.
you're interested in hearing me during my break and getting a little bit more unfiltered Bish, because I feel safer to do it there, right? Like people can
Yeah.
really control. So my Patreon is a little bit, I can be a little bit more of myself. So if you want to check that out, please check out Your Bish Therapist on Patreon.
Yeah. Mandy, is a good friend of mine. We see each other all the time in DC. Yeah.
Yeah. She
Love
tells me,
Mandy.
oh, she's the best. And I'm like, the three of us, I feel like we have to do something together. It's
I don't
just,
the 2 of you might be too smart for me. I'm gonna be honest.
oh, stop that right now. That's
You
not
guys
true.
you guys are very, very smart and very and Mandy always has these, like, deep takes, and I'm like, "Wow, Mandy, I was just trying to talk about, Jack saying he wasn't gonna take the dishes, but you took it to another level."
Right. I know, that's why we love each other though, because
Yeah.
we look into every corner and crevice.
Yeah.
But no, you would fit in perfectly, and we would love to have you anytime as a guest on M&M Hour.
It could be M&M.
Oh my god, stop that
Mhm.
right now. M&M. Okay, it's
Eh,
happening. It's all happening, everybody, as Sheena would say.
okay.
Okay. Oh,
And everybody, please follow me if you're listening over on Pink Shade Pod on Instagram. It's Pink Shade Podcast on TikTok. It's all the same stuff in both places because I don't know how to do specific stuff for TikTok. But anyway, follow me. I'm always putting out some fun reels. I'll put one out about this one today. We're going to think about what was the funniest thing Melissa said, and we'll put it out there. So everybody follow at your Bish therapist and at Pink Shade Pod. And I will be back to talk to you guys about, we've got the Valley episode coming out on Wednesday. This is Thursday. Hunt for Love is out on Friday. So see you tomorrow. Bye.
bye.